Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is August 2nd, and right now we're looking at the visible satellite imagery. And if you look closely, you can see the flat fire down here. You can see the bedrock fire across the Central Cascades of Oregon, Eagle Bluff here, just on the Washington-Canada border. Some of these are producing some pretty good amounts of smoke, but a lot of the area not dealing with too much smoke right now, even though you can see some fires across western Montana, up across British Columbia here as well. We've got this system kind of ejecting through British Columbia. It's fairly weak, but it's probably going to bring some afternoon thunderstorms across the higher terrain here. It's actually a little bit of a buildup there. You can see kind of some cumulus cloud activity across the Olympic Mountains here. Then as we go through this weekend, though, we're going to increase some of this activity across even the Washington-Oregon Cascades, some of the higher terrain east of the Cascades as well. And then we're going to bring a system on in through about August 8th, 9th, or 10th here. Across the area here, we're not looking at much precipitation west of the Cascades. Even some of the members are showing it. We'll take a look at those details, and we'll take a look at the warm-up coming this weekend as well, and then as well as a potential fantasy warm-up as we go through the way off in the extended. Just something to look at right now. Here we go, sunny and warm conditions to end the week here. This is Spokane National Weather Service. You can see there is that chance of thunderstorms introduced here Friday and Saturday, with some temperatures getting up to the mid-90s. This is looking at the air quality here, and you can see the degraded air quality across some of the Central Cascades here of Oregon, down across the Flat Fire, up into BC, some of western Montana dealing with that as well. But a lot of the region still not doing it too bad here overall. And if you guys want a nice home weather station here, it's all solar powered, all wireless, nice smartphone app here. Click on the link down below to save 10% off. And this is looking at Hawaii. You can see even people on the islands of Hawaii. Look at Lanai. Someone even has a station on the island out there. So pretty interesting stuff. You can scroll all over the world and see who has these stations. Unless, of course, you want to keep yours private. This is looking at SeaTac. 83 degrees. Nice start to August here. 4 degrees above average. No precipitation yesterday. Probably none expected here for the next week or so. But then we have a slight potential here that we'll look at in a moment. This is looking at that system. As we saw on the visible satellite, you can kind of see that ejecting across British Columbia here. You can see it move across British Columbia, redevelop a trough here out over the Gulf of Alaska. You see the ridge reach up into the Northwest Territories and the Yukon here, up towards Alaska, and that warms us up this weekend. It's going to introduce some thunderstorms as well. We'll take a look at those details. And then you can see the trough start to drop down here as we go through the 8th and 9th. Across western Alaska, all the way down through the Gulf of Alaska here. We'll take a look at those details here in a moment. Then you can see kind of that fantasy ridge starting to develop here across some of the west coast of North America. Look at this dome of high pressure across the southwest, bubbling up all the way into Idaho, eastern Washington, including western Washington, BC here. So we'll watch that one out through the extended. Just something to look at for now. No need to get worried about any of this. And then you can see a system kind of traverse across British Columbia way off into the future here. Purely fantasy at this point. This is the European control run yesterday afternoon. We're going to check out precipitation amounts here. So this is this afternoon. You can see thunderstorm activity across Idaho down through Nevada here as that system was across BC, maybe Vancouver Island, central Vancouver Island north through western BC, some of the higher terrain there. And as we go through, this would be Thursday afternoon. You can see some of that bubbling up into Oregon here, thunderstorm potential with that. And as we go through Friday, maybe the Blue Mountains, some of the Oregon Cascades, you can see some showers trying to pop off across the Washington Cascades up into the British Columbia higher terrain as well on Friday afternoon. And watch Saturday. We really get the uptick here across the Washington Cascades. Seafair will be ongoing here, and you'll probably see those buildups across the mountain areas there. It's even showing a little bit of precip across some of the Olympic Mountains. We'll watch that, and you can see bigger amounts across western Montana. Now we're going in through Sunday afternoon, kind of a repeat there. Again, the Olympic Mountains, maybe a shower or two there as well. And some of eastern Washington, even the Columbia Basin, showing some precipitation amounts as we go on in through the day Sunday. That's something we'll have to watch closely as well. And then again, Monday here, another round of thunderstorms for the Cascades of Washington, Blue Mountains, Idaho, Rocky Mountains, all the way up into Canada here as well. And if you look out here across Pacific, you can see that system start to roll through here about August 8th here, and it starts to impact western BC, lesser amounts, of course, the further you go south, but this could bring some measurable precip to the Washington coast as well. Some of the ensembles are showing a little bit of precip for Seattle, Portland, down through this Willamette Valley here as well. We'll take a look at those maps here coming up in a minute, but you can see not a big rainmaker right now in the control run anyway, and then that fantasy ridge starts to dry us out again, and probably some mountain thunderstorms would be in order if that were to verify. This is looking at total precipitation in inches. Yesterday's control run that goes out 15 days, so we're going to scroll through here, and you can see that activity start to move up across Oregon, then Washington as we go through Sunday here. Some pretty good amounts locally could be falling underneath some of these thunderstorms. Even the Olympic Mountains showing up with a bit of precip there as well. And then you see that system arrive, again, mainly for western BC here, but you can't rule out some across the Washington coastline here. But it doesn't look like a big rainmaker yet, but that could trend up or down as we get closer to that event. We'll continue to watch that. This is looking at mean sea level pressure. The anomaly is the color coded, and then you can see the sea level pressure isobars also outlined here as well. And you can see this trough kind of backing up over the Pacific Ocean here. That low pressure, it's going to allow us to warm up as we go through this weekend and on into early next week. And then you'll see kind of a shift here as this system moves across the Gulf of Alaska and kind of brings that system. That's the one right there we're watching as we go through the 8th, 9th, and 10th, kind of on the southern periphery of this system here. And then look at that monster storm out here towards the Aleutians as you go through the extended, purely just a novelty here for the Pacific Northwest, but kind of interesting showing that signal way out there at 10 days on the European model. Now, looking at Portland, Oregon, you can see above average temperatures as we go on in through the early portion of next week. Then that trough tries to come down across the region there. And then the Fantasy Ridge starts showing up there, purely fantasy, of course, at this point. And this system is still technically in fantasy land right now. We don't want to get caught up in precipitation amounts just yet, but likely a cool down with it would come. Tillamook, Oregon, check it out, bouncing around average. And then look at the Fantasy Ridge out there. Some of the ensemble runs showing up into the 90s here out to the Oregon coast. We'll, take that with a grain of salt. Just purely fantasy. I'm trusting you guys to be able to digest that right there. This is looking at Hoquiam, Washington, something similar there. You can clearly see that Fantasy Ridge there. Bend, Oregon, something similar, bouncing around average here until we get off into the extended. Seattle Metro, nice warm seafair weekend coming up here, and then a little bit of a downtrend here with that trough. We'll see how that trends, and then maybe some warm up in the extended. Spokane Metro, something similar here. Brookings, Oregon, check it out. You guys are going to get warm this weekend. Look at this, some temperatures down to the 80s, and a lot of times the models will underdo just the amount of warmth that Brookings, Oregon gets out there. So you can see you could get up towards 90 degrees here, and then the potential for that ridge way up into the extended. So yeah, you guys might be warming up here along portions of the Oregon coast here, the Banana Belt down there in Brookings, Oregon. This is Seattle Metro. Check out some of these ensembles. Look at ensemble number 1. This would be just a dream here. 1.9 inches of precipitation, almost falling in a 24-hour period there. I wouldn't hang your hat on that or anything, and the control is much less. And some of these ensembles are just dry here, but it does show some potential for that system that's sliding through here the 8th, 9th, or the 10th. This is looking at Hoquiam. Again, a little bit better chance out there, but none of the big ensemble members showing up there as much anyway. I mean, this one is showing 9/10 of an inch. But yeah, we'll watch that system as we go. We have a few days to monitor that. This is Bellingham, Washington, something similar to Seattle with the mix of dry ensembles and wet ensembles. Little less chance the further you go south here, but even places like Salem showing the potential for some precip coming up here. No promises though. This is looking at the HER, the 12Z run 3-kilometer high resolution model. You can see these fires bouncing the smoke around here. So if you're downstream from any one of these fires and you're smelling smoke, you'll know the reason why. You kind of see this bubbling and drifting around other areas, including the Columbia Basin, maybe Spokane. You might smell some of that smoke here from the Eagle Bluff fire as well. This is looking at the 6 to 10 day temperature. Check out that big blue blob over Wyoming and Montana out there all the way through August 11th, and something similar through August 14th. This is looking at 6 to 10 day precipitation probability outlook, and we do have that thunderstorm potential coming up here for the next few days, and then that system kind of driving through the area there as well. And this goes through August 15th here. Now, I showed this yesterday briefly, just kind of showing you that drought development is likely in places that are showing up as yellow here, and we have drought persisting in the brown areas there. So I'd like to see some areas drought removal, but we're not getting much precipitation this time of year, of course, across Pacific Northwest, so unlikely at this point. Now, this is looking, we got a current status and prediction for El Nino update here. We got July 31st. This is 2 days ago now. We are still in the El Nino advisory right now. And this is kind of looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies. You can see as we went through last fall, November, December, January, February, March, April. And you can see the warm up, especially across the coast of South America. And you can see that pushing out across the central equatorial Pacific. So that means we are in El Nino conditions right now. Still not technically in El Nino yet. You have to have a 5-month running time frame to get that. But now we're looking at the Nino 3.4. There's that where we measure those ENSO conditions that are across the equatorial Pacific. There would be Hawaii, South America, Australia there. And so we're at 1.2. That's technically moderate territory. And you can see the climb out of La Nina that we've gone through since last fall on into the summertime here. This is looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies during the last 4 weeks. You can clearly see that tongue extending across the equatorial Pacific there. And you can see the below average conditions up there across California pulling away from the coastline here. This is looking at over the last 4 weeks. You can see some of the warm up here across places like off the Pacific Northwest. We'll see how that plays into our winter coming up. We'll wait till we get closer before we see if any blobs persist or any cool areas of water persist across Pacific Northwest here. This is looking at what's known as Kelvin waves. So you can see when we were in La Nina here, the warmer Western Pacific versus the cooler Eastern Pacific. And you can see a little bit of warm water come across and then cooler, warmer, cooler, warmer, cooler. And you can see progressively these Kelvin waves have gotten warmer. So we went through a warm phase here through June, and now we're going through a little bit of a cool phase and probably another warm phase. Of course, these alternate back and forth here. So the developing El Nino clearly underway, as you can see here. And this is looking at outgoing long wave radiation here. So if you look at the red here or the orange, that means there's more sunshine than normal across the dateline, 180 degrees right across the Pacific Ocean there, equatorial Pacific. And then the blue shows that that's kind of flipped here. Now you're getting more clouds across that region, possibly a sign of that Mad-Julian oscillation trying to get going here across some of the Pacific Ocean here, helping that El Nino develop. This is looking at the CFS forecast. You can see we're probably headed towards a strong El Nino coming up here. Still a little bit of question about that right now. And there's still question on just how this is going to affect the circulation across the rest of the planet as well, because a lot of times El Nino is based on its difference in temperature versus other portions of the ocean, across the entire world, really. So just how this develops is kind of yet to be seen. We'll continue to monitor it as we go. But anyway, I hope you guys aren't downstream from any of these fires out there. You can see them bubbling around, but nice sunny skies really for much of the region. You can see them out right here on the GOES 18 satellite, that system ejecting northward here. Then we're going to kick up some thunderstorms as we go through this weekend, so heads up for that, especially if you're in the backcountry. There's some good precipitation amounts showing up across some of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon, Blue Mountains, Rocky Mountains, Northeast Washington, BC here. So be prepared for that, and we're going to be quite warm here this weekend. So we'll continue to watch that. We'll watch that fantasy system out there in the August 8th through 10th timeframe as well. So we'll continue to do this day by day. Hope you guys are liking these videos, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.